Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Domain Academy podcast. And I have some great guests today with me. We're going to introduce them in just a second. Today, we're going to be talking about domainnames.com. It's GoDaddy's premier marketplace for extremely valuable and high-end assets. Domains that are usually one word is what we're looking for, and they're category defining. So the names that we have on there that we're going to cover later, I'm going to ask everybody what's their favorite, but some of the ones that I noticed that jumped out to me are names like marketplace.com. I always think of Kai Ryssdal and Marketplace on NPR. You know, when I hear that and I think, man, Marketplace, that's such an iconic brand. And those are the types of names that we sell on domainnames.com. And we're going to jump into how we sell them, why we sell them, who we sell them to. But before we get started, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Joe Styler. I run domainacademy.com for GoDaddy. I've been in the domain industry for over 20 years, and we have a lot of fun teaching people about how to invest in domain names. And I'm going to turn it over to our guest of the day, Brian Gilbert, to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Brian Gilbert. I've been in the domain industry for a little over 20 years as well, and I manage a large domain portfolio, sales, purchases, everything you can do with the portfolio.
Yep. And all around nice guy and good cook. Let's turn it over to Brooke.
I'm Brooke Barngrover. I've been with GoDaddy for about 17 years, most of those years in premier services, focusing on helping domain investors buy and sell good quality domains.
All right, Wade, just because you're next on my screen.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm Wade Smith. I'm the Director of Aftermarket Sales with GoDaddy. I have been in the domain industry since 2012, just about approaching 14 years. Started for a company which was called DomainNamesSales.com, not to be confused with DomainNames.com. You might hear me slip up and say that a few times, but Brian, you might be familiar with that company from back in the day.
Yes.
So I started with them actually as a broker. I transitioned into a director role with Uniregistry when they transformed over to Uniregistry, and then came over to GoDaddy in 2020. I am approaching quickly here, almost working for GoDaddy longer than I have worked for Uniregistry domain name sales, which is quite a milestone. So
It's good to have you on. And Tom, last but not least.
So my name's Tom McCarthy. I'm a lead broker for domainnames.com. I bought my first domain name in 2002, interestingly enough, from Frank. What had happened was I was reaching out directly to him through the Whois, just trying to get a response. It wasn't listed at the time. I was in college. I paid 12 grand for a big upgrade from a .net to a .com. That was my first experience with a domain. For the past 10 years, I've been with GoDaddy. For the past 6 or 7 years on the broker team, I've pretty consistently been number one. I've brokered about 10,000 domain names, and I'm really excited to lead the new domainnames.com.
When we talk about domainnames.com, we're going to be talking about assets that sell in the 6 and 7 figures. And I wanted to take a step back and just do a really high level overview of what would make a name that valuable. So names are worth money. Most of them sell in the $3,000 to $5,000 range in the aftermarket, but the really high-end valuable brand assets sell for 6 or 7 figures, sometimes even 8. The highest public sale that we just saw recently last year was AI.com, and that sold for $70 million, and it was featured in the Super Bowl. And that, I think, is a great example of what makes a name premium. AI is the fastest growing market in the world right now, and for you to own category defining.com, it really buys you so many things. You get brand recognition right away. People say, oh, AI, that I can remember that, right? It's out of everybody's lips. So AI.com gives you instant brand recognition. It really helps for credibility. I mean, you're talking about a giant space, right? You have Anthropic and you have ChatGPT with OpenAI. You've got billions of dollars invested into advertising in this space and building up new companies. And someone can come in and buy AI.com and just have a seat at that table, right? It gives you that kind of credibility. So then the premium names that we're talking about today are ultra premium, really high-end assets that will do those types of things for the buyers. They'll help them to establish, top tier brand credibility and trust and brand recognition, which are really key when you're trying to bring something to market as a new competitor, or when you're an established business and you want to start to take over maybe a new vertical. So those are the assets we're going to be discussing today. If this intrigues you at all and you think, man, I had no idea that names could be worth 6 or 7 figures, or that people were paying anywhere like this $70 million for a name, and you want to know more about that, I brought Brooke on to talk to that a little bit before we dive into the domainnames.com platform.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Joe. Yeah, so I'm with the Premier Services team here at GoDaddy. We take a white glove approach and focus on helping clients just buy and sell domains in general. Almost every rep on our team has been with GoDaddy for over a decade. We've seen the cycles, we know the aftermarket, we know the buyers, we know the comps, and really the goal is simple, just to help improve your sell-through rate, because that's really, at the end of the day, what pays the bills, you know. So maybe you could use some advice from your rep that has worked with some of the most successful domain investors for the last 10 or 20 years. Or maybe you just like the idea of having a dedicated contact that you know and trust that's going to go to bat for you and help you with all things GoDaddy. If you already have a Premier Services rep, just reach out. Reach out to your account manager, ask about domainnames.com, ask about acquisition recommendations or sales best practices, whatever it may be. That's exactly what we're here for. If you don't have an account manager yet, just email us at premiersupport@godaddy.com. We'll set up a call, see if you qualify, and figure out how we can help you grow. We're not a call center. We're a small team of just tenured pros who generally want our clients to win. So hit us up.
Thanks, Brooke. So we've been mentioning domainnames.com. We've been talking about it, but we really haven't told people what it is. So I'd like to get into that. What is it? Why did we start it? And really, who does it exist for? Wade, I think this is best for you, but we can have various people chime in.
Yeah, I can definitely kick it off. So just to give you a little bit of history on domainnames.com and how the platform came to be. A few years ago, we started thinking that it would be a good idea to have a showcase of some of the most valuable domain assets available on the internet for two reasons. For number one, a lot of potential buyers or high-fit companies that might want to actually utilize these names might not know that they're available, or they might not have checked, and they might not have gone to the lander and seen that it was available or done any research on it. Or if somebody was looking to start a new brand and they needed ideas for names, to have a place where they'd be able to go and search through some of the best inventory that's available that they could name around. And then for sellers to be able to have that platform as well. So we really see that this platform is a way that we can elevate the space for both buyers and sellers in the ultra premium category. So these are names that are going to be those one-word.coms that are going to make fantastic brands. We also have quite a few .ai domains on there because those have been really taking off in the last couple of years, and we've seen a lot of companies brand around those as well. So a few years ago, we started with that idea that it would be good to have a showroom, and we kind of had that at the back of our mind. And then at the beginning of last year, we wanted to go in and actually see, could we generate demand? We've historically been a platform that's waited for buyers to come to us. Buyers come to our for sale landers, buyers come to GoDaddy.com, and through our distribution network, the names, when they're looking for them, they can find them. But we started to take an approach of, can we take valuable names and actually put them on radars of companies that they would be a high fit for? And it gave us the proof points of really kind of saying, you know what, we can do that. And we were successful in being able to engage and sell domains through that method. It gave us the proof points to say, we can take our brokerage team, which is highly talented and some of the best in the world, such as Tom, and coupling that with a marketplace to give additional exposure for those domains as well. And that's how we came up with domainnames.com and what we're offering behind it, which we'll likely get into a little bit later, but it's a marketplace where you can go to discover domains, but listings on there as well. We are proactively looking for ways to generate demand for those domains through various different channels.
I'd like to add on that. I have on my whiteboard there, outbound consultation with precision. What I've found is rather than take a very wide net approach, the deals that we've been most successful for are where us brokers can act as a business consultant, to present a $15 million asset to a company and give them specific reasons why they should buy it. Not because it's a great domain name, but exactly where it fits into their infrastructure. GoDaddy, every broker is very tenured. I'd say on average, we have got about a decade of experience coming up the ranks in GoDaddy. And GoDaddy's the world leader when it comes to helping small businesses thrive. So in a sense, we have a lot of that background with business consultation, which comes in very handy when we're having conversations with these C-level executives.
We went over a couple things that make domainnames.com unique, but I think domainnames.com was created just to be a unique platform to sell domain names that are high end and use GoDaddy's reach from the ability we have with customers or relationship with other companies to reach out and present those. Does that kind of sum up what we're trying to convey?
I would agree with that. You're right. In terms of our distribution network and the reach that we have, we've got a large customer database. We've been operating in the domain space for, you guys will know, much longer than I know how long GoDaddy's been around for. But what I would also add to that, Joe, is that it's the trust as well, right? It's the brand recognition of the GoDaddy name behind it. And when you can couple those things together with the reach and the brand, a lot of companies are already familiar with GoDaddy and they're familiar with purchasing through them as well. So that really adds an element to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest advantages that we feel we have is those two things, is the reach and the trust through our brand.
Yeah, I think that's key.
Yeah.
It's something that you get when you talk with customers a lot, especially when you're talking about, 6-7 figure names, right? You have to have that trust. You know, you're going to give somebody a lot of money and you want to make sure that you get that name back. And not only do you get it back, but you have some hand holding along the way. So you make sure it hits your account. You make sure it's not going to fail billing or whatever in a couple of months. That you really know if you buy this name that you're going to get it and have the ability to use it in the right way. And I think that's something that definitely comes across.
I was going to say in-house, it's all hands on deck to a certain extent. And so I thought of a couple different deals that we've done on the DBS side, where some big buyers out of Asia were target candidates for this name that we're looking to sell. And so we reached out to the senior manager in the Beijing GoDaddy office, is asked, hey, can you get in touch with these customers that have bought domains through us in the past?
Mm-hmm.
And within 12 hours, they had responded to us. So it's a really exciting initiative in-house at GoDaddy, and it goes beyond the domainnames.com ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Even some execs, if somebody knows somebody else in-house at GoDaddy, then we're leveraging that relationship to make sure that we're getting in front of the right people with the opportunity. That goes hand in hand with GCD and GoDaddy corporate domains as well. Whatever it takes to get eyes in front of the right decision makers using that trust in the GoDaddy name.
I'm glad you brought that up because it definitely, I'm sure, helps open doors. So speaking of getting those names in front of the right people and selling them, we brought Brian on, and Brian is one of the lucky people that we had to come in, I think, really early on. And that's why I say lucky. And I know that we let Brian come in and list some of his names early on so we can kind of test things out when we were first starting. And he's been with us since then. And I wanted to talk with Brian a little bit about what your experience has been like, as somebody who's been selling, because we've been talking a lot about what we do, how we try and get the name sold. But what about you as a seller? How's your experience been with domainnames.com?
Yeah, let me just back up a little bit. You had talked about what defines a premium domain, and everybody mentioned the branding, including you. And so through this whole domain names, what is domainnames.com? It's all about the branding and using the GoDaddy brand. So that was super important for us, is to get our names backed by a brand, that the GoDaddy brand, and that instantly builds trust with people. We have our own marketplace, but nobody knows who we are, and so having our names on the GoDaddy website with the GoDaddy lander and the GoDaddy branding, super important for us, and we feel that's played an important role in our success with domainnames.com and Afternic.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We talk about trust and then branding, and domainnames.com is an excellent brand, and we kind of skipped over it because it's the whole point of the podcast. But
Yeah,
brand wise, I think it does carry some weight, and it definitely lets people know that we're serious, right?
Right. GoDaddy, the name GoDaddy doesn't really say what it does, right? But domainnames.com says exactly what you do, and that's super important. Y'all did very good picking that name.
Can you talk us through one of the names that you sold, even if you can't mention the name, and kind of just what the process was like for you as a seller, and how things went along?
Yeah. Okay. It was super easy for us. We had inventory names that we were looking to rotate. And so in talking with Wade and our account rep, Mark Becker, they put us in touch with Todd Cantwell at Afternic. And so Todd, I shared the list with him, and he said, I think these will do really well on GoDaddy auctions, but what else do you have? And I showed him, and he says, yeah, we're coming up with this product called domainnames.com, and we think that some of your names will fit on this platform. He kind of gave us the rundown of it, and we said, yes, let's do it. And so we did. And like, within just a couple of months, you guys had sold tar.com for us, passwords.com and themes.com, and we still have several listed, but I know you guys are working on some other maybe super secret stuff with that we don't want to talk about in this podcast. But yeah, and I actually have a call with Todd tomorrow about some of that stuff. But anyway, so domainnames.com has been really, really good for us in offloading or finding the right buyers for these premium names.
Yeah, I think that's a good position to be in when you just mentioned, we have some inventory names that are, 6-figure names we could just sell. We have sitting around the shelf that we've got to get rid of.
Well, the inventory names, we've considered inventory names like sub 10,000, right? We had like a massive pool of those, and we're like, okay, how do we, rotate some of these out? And then, when Todd inquired about our better names, that's kind of when the domainnames.com conversation came up. It's like, oh yeah, okay, this is going to work. So
yeah, and not to put you on the spot again, but
yeah,
what I'd like to know, because I think this is one of the big things that people think about when they think about domains and sales. They think about it as an illiquid asset, right? That it's not easy to sell. But I think if you can get it to the right place and in front of the right people, that it's not as hard to sell as you might think. So how long had you had these names before, ballpark, compared to how long they were on the domainnames.com platform?
I guess we have our portfolio kind of like tiered out, right? So we'll just call these ultra names tier 1, right? And so they're hold forever, renew forever, unless the right buyer comes along. And so through our years of selling lower tiered or higher tiered domains, it just kind of like, we had a lot of data, but not as much data as GoDaddy has on sales. And so anyway, that kind of like really helped us decide to come to domainnames.com, because every broker has their own list of people they reach out to, or we have our tools, and we use those tools to try to get in front of the right company. But without that brand, say I'm Brian from Innovation HQ, who is that? Nobody knows who that is, right? But when you say you're Joe from GoDaddy, everybody goes, oh, I know who GoDaddy is. And so again, we'll turn back to the brand and say that was the ultimate perfect match for us,
And I think what Tom brought up before, we're a pretty big company, right? We have a lot of people here, and it's a wide range of people. So usually somebody here knows a person, so we can do a warm intro and say, oh, you know what, this would be a perfect fit for your company. We have somebody who knows you, and we'll talk with them. So that really opens doors, I think. Besides the brand and the trust that we have, a lot of times we can get some kind of personal relationship there to bridge that gap, and that helps.
Your outreach list is much bigger.
Passwords.com, Brian, was a really interesting one for me. From all my days brokering domains on GoDaddy's DBS team, or the domain broker service team, I've developed a lot of relationships with hundreds of corporate repeat buyers, and some buyers go on hot streaks. And this particular buyer, they were buying at the time, buying lots. They had no idea that passwords.com was for sale. It's not in their wheelhouse at all, not on their radar. But I gave them a great business justification case and gave them a great use case about how they can use passwords.com as a separate subsidiary for their own business.
Right.
And they were interested right away. They took my suggestion, put an offer on the table. And over the weekend, we took that offer and we reached out to who would be your most likely buyers for passwords.com, just to make sure that we were maximizing the sales price.
Yeah.
And sure enough, by that Monday, once we had maximized the value of that asset, I think it sold. So that was a very quick deal. And it was all based on relationships that we have in the aftermarket at GoDaddy system.
And if memory serves me right, I think that one was only with you guys for probably 3 months at the time before it sold. I mean, it was a very fast turnaround. So speaking of illiquid and liquid, that's how fast you can turn these, over. So.
All right, I want to give you one more question.
Okay.
If you were going to give somebody advice today, as the seller who's coming in for a 6-figure name, be with us or with anybody else, what do you think is some of the most important advice you could give them if they're considering selling a name that's pretty valuable?
Okay. Well, I think first of all, you have to be realistic about pricing. You have to know the market of who the buyer is going to be. And like I said, we have tons of sales data, as do you guys. And so we set our prices based on our sales data and our research and so on and so forth. And so, but over the years, we've kind of lowered those prices to find our sweet spot, so to speak. And when we lower our prices, we lower them on the inventory domains first as like a test, because if we lose a couple $100, that's much better than losing several $1,000s. And so anyway, yeah, I think you have to be realistic about pricing. And what we do is we'll set a bin price and a floor price, and that gives the brokers instant negotiation freedom, I guess you would say. And of course, that's after long discussions with brokers that say, hey, listen, we've reached out to multiple people and this is just the most we're going to get for it, because we all know that valuation tools are skewed. There's no perfect mathematical equation that tells the exact value of a domain name, right? And so we just kind of proceed with caution. So we put the bin price of what we would really like to get for the name and what we feel like our valuation tool tells us. And then we set a realistic floor price that says, okay, this gives the broker the negotiation room to kind of bring a qualified buyer to the table. And then we work it from there. But I will also add that even with the floor price, it's very important for a seller to understand, even with the floor price, when we put it there, the brokers are not shooting for the floor price. They're shooting for your bin price. They want you to sell at that bin price. And so, we have more times than not sold closer to our bin than to our floor price. So I know some users or some sellers would probably have reluctance to say, oh, the broker's only going to sell at my bottom dollar. And it's like, no, that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think pricing is probably one of the key things that needs to be right to make that sale happen. And so I think a realistic expectation is important.
Obviously, when you have higher pricing and if it's really aspirational pricing, the buyer universe for the domain goes down. So a domain may have a lot of potential high-fit companies that could purchase it, but if it's way out of their league in terms of pricing, then that list obviously becomes smaller. You have less targetable buyers that you can reach out to. And you can have higher price and kind of just be more realistic with what your expectations are in terms of a floor, and work with the team. And especially on domainnames.com, what we're offering is definitely a lot more high touch with our sellers and working closer with them and trying to see, okay, if we have done outreach and we've marketed the domain, we've internally tried to find buyers for that domain name, we can kind of look at what's happened and what's transpired so far to kind of look at pricing again and say, is that the correct price to have on it? Or are we too kind of narrow with the buyer universe for the domain in that price range?
Yeah. And having been in the domain industry for over 20 years, I've made lots of friends. And, it's always easy to reach out to them and say, hey, what do you think about the price for this domain name? And we don't try to steer them one way or the other. And we get good feedback in that arena, so it's always good to just kind of bounce it off of people, because some others might be aware of trends that we're not, and they may say, oh, this is really a hot topic in this specific realm here. So maybe if you find a buyer in that realm, you could get more out of it than you could just selling it on the open markets.
I'm going a bit back here, but we were talking about GoDaddy's brand, and you mentioned it as well. When using for sale landers, domainnames.com backed by the GoDaddy brand. And obviously we do have a lot of connections and a lot of people that have purchased through us in the past and that we work with, but there are also many companies that we haven't worked with. We will reach out to them, and we do utilize the GoDaddy brand for that as well, which I think it really helps for what we're doing. If there are new companies out there that it just formed and we find a signal that there's a domain that we have on our platform that's a good match for them, we'll reach out to them. Even if we've never dealt with that particular person before, we will look to see, have we worked with that company? Do we have any contacts in that company to see that we should be reaching out to? But if we haven't, we will reach out to them directly, and we get really good engagement because I feel like we do have that GoDaddy name. When you see it's coming from a GoDaddy email address with the GoDaddy employee, it definitely helps to open the door. So
yeah, Wade, the signals that you mentioned, they are critical and have been a big amplifier the past couple of months. Give you a great example. One of the signals that you had given was a $17 million raise, and it's an exact match for the brand. I think they're online at the .us, and we're marketing the .com. I simply picked up the phone because we had their contact information. GoDaddy's the registrar for their primary domain. Sent a submission on their contact us page, and within 15 minutes, the CMO had gotten back to me, had called me and said, yeah, I recognize you guys. I've known that we need the .com for a long time. I figured it's going to cost around $1 million, so I'm glad that you reached out. So just having that GoDaddy brand, it goes a long ways with the domains that you're representing. There may be other brokers in the industry that are known within the industry, but to the general public knows GoDaddy.
Yeah, I think that definitely conveys a lot of trust, which again, on higher sales, I think that's really important.
It's like luxury real estate.
Yeah.
Who do you want as your listing partner? It's that perceived value on who you're partnering with.
You want somebody that knows the space and that you can trust. Wait, as far as the name recognition goes, I know we did some redesign on the site and you were involved with that. Can you tell us a little bit about why did we do that redesign and what things does it have to offer people now?
Yeah, sure. So when we originally launched domainnames.com, we had gone with one brand direction for it. We utilized AI heavily in logo creation, even helping us with the site. And to get it up there quickly, we wanted to get something up there quickly and something that we could modify quickly as well and iterate on it and that's why it's its own standalone platform. So we can make changes to it fairly quickly. We've completely redone the branding of it, how you can filter domains and you can search for domains on it as well. So we took a much more elegant approach. When I was working at Uniregistry, Frank had a knack for really looking at certain websites that he liked, how they sold high-end luxury items, and with ultra premium domain inventory, it certainly is one of those types of kind of inventory that deserves to be presented in the right way, and that it is prestigious in a way, right? So, and it's not a mass marketplace where we're trying to really accommodate hundreds of thousands or millions of domains here. It's more hand selected and limited inventory. So we're trying to give it a way so that we can properly showcase the inventory, make it easy to sort through, find, and look elegant, look high class, and things like that. So that's why we did the rebrand. So far, we've gotten really good feedback on it. We did get lots of feedback on the first iteration that we had been slowly implementing new features and new kind of filter features and things like that. But we'll continue to do so. We can make changes fairly quickly to it. And we're going to continue to iterate on it and get better with it. But I would really like the direction that it's taken. So I'm happy with where we're at the moment.
Yeah, I think that kind of highlights one of the things that I keep hearing over and over again. And Brian, if I'm wrong with this, let me know. But it feels like we're really collaborative in this approach and how we sell. Like we want to make sure that we work with the seller to make sure that they feel they're a part of it. If they have feedback, if they think we can handle things differently or whatever, we're gonna talk with them. If we choose to do something in a specific way, we're gonna let them know why. It really seems like a collaborative relationship, and that goes
100%. Yeah.
That goes to that website rebuild, right? Like we're doing that as part of feedback that we keep hearing. So well, I know we've done some other things too with this that we've never tried before. So Tom and I were at an event a couple of months ago where there was giant unicorns, people in unicorn suits going around because we had unicorns.com for sale. I saw pictures of geese. It's called a gaggle of geese. We had giant geese in Vegas, and Tom had a flashy outfit on. So I know we've done some different marketing things. We're trying a lot of different things to see what works and what really gets the name across. And I was just wondering if you could talk us through, and I know we can only say certain things, but whatever we're allowed to say about the different types of marketing that we've done for this. I mean, we've talked about calling people up and talking to people that we know and leveraging relationships, but I know we're doing some other stuff too. So what things are we doing that are kind of different? That those things are completely different than anything we've done before to get people's names in front of them?
Sure. So attendances at conferences is very big. I would say that our role here is demand generation and getting in front of the right buyers, and being at these conferences is very important. And the stunt of gaggle, that was at the Adobe Summit just a couple of weeks back in Las Vegas. And it was the talk of the summit to some regard. You have these executives from every large company in the world, and all of a sudden there's geese walking by wondering what's happening. And the idea wasn't just to sell gaggle.com, but it was to get the attention of domain buyers to start a conversation. And the repurposing of that stunt has paid dividends. I know that I've sent out dozens of emails and I'm having dozens of conversations. Say, hey, you remember me from the Adobe Summit? Remember the geese? You know, as we learned at the Adobe Summit, the importance of differentiating your brand in agentic AI days. You know, I think it's important that we take a look at this domain name. So leveraging the stunt, not just to sell that one asset, but to bring awareness to domainnames.com just to make it more memorable as we expand our pool of buyers. Same goes with unicorns. I mean, that repurposing the marketing content, we had videographers there. And now each time we have a conversation about unicorns.com with a potential buyer, we can show them that content. We can say, hey, imagine what unicorns.com did for us just over a weekend in Tucson. What's it going to do for you when you're online as unicorns.com? So being able to leverage that stunt, not just for that one weekend, but in perpetuity as we enter into negotiations is very important. I'd say that going back to that consultation part, education is so important at the high end of the market. And when discussing with C-level execs, I know that a big initiative this year for GoDaddy is the case studies and looking at different acquisitions and how they're being used. Same goes with the marketing stunts, just helping buyers to understand how a domain name can get attention has been very helpful.
I was just going to add to that. We have been experimenting, right? And how do you build a platform awareness for domainnames.com, get the name out there so that when companies are looking for a new domain for a brand or maybe a new product that they're launching, that they know that they can go to domainnames.com and see our inventory, but also gets awareness for the individual domains. We've done other experiments and we're constantly working with our marketing team to do ad placements around the platform and individual domains as well. We've tried various different platforms like X and LinkedIn as well. So I do feel like we're settling into a lot of different experimentation and figuring out what's working, what's getting the best promotion of the inventory, and what's also promoting the platform itself. Because there really are two kind of sets of inventory that I see on our platform. And I kind of differentiate them by saying that some are really targetable. For instance, you said marketplace.com. I'd say that's a targetable domain where you're going to have a big buyer universe for that one, depending on the price. But even with it being a very expensive domain, there's a lot of potential end users that we could come up with a list and they would most likely be interested in it. And there would be a high-fit company that we can reach out to them. But a lot of other domain names, something like bomb.com, which is on the platform as well, and asteroid.com, they're great brand names, but they don't quite have the same targetable audience. You can come up with a list, but not as many that are going to immediately engage. You might be able to put it on their radar, but not kind of like the category defining names. Doesn't mean that they're any less of an asset. You think of some of the biggest companies out there, they've gone with the brandable type names that, like Amazon, for instance. There would be a huge targetable audience for that domain either, but it makes a fantastic brand. So we're really trying to experiment with different ways. On those targetable names, we can do direct outreach, use our internal customer database to find targets and reach out to people. We've had a lot of success doing that. We've really figured out how to get good engagement around direct outreach and doing it that way. But on the more brand ready domains, like those ones where it's not going to have such a big targetable brand or buyer universe, how do we also promote those through awareness? And that's through a network and different channels and different relationships that we have with maybe naming agencies and our network of buyers doing ads and kind of getting exposure for the platform in general, so that when somebody is looking for a brand name like that, they know where to go and they know who to contact to find our inventory that we have.
It makes me think of our standing Tuesday meeting with marketing. Every single Tuesday, we're meeting with marketing, discussing what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what is next on the docket. I think it's also really exciting to see the chatter and discussion at the highest levels within the organization. I think in some regard, domainnames.com was mentioned on the earnings call. And it's very exciting to see a lot of resources being allocated to the initiatives.
Yeah, I always think it's fun to see what people do with the names that we sell. I think it's fun to kind of look over the site and see what new inventory we have, just from a personal experience. I told you I have some marketplace. I saw stockmarket.com. I mean, these are some really great assets that are available for people to be able to purchase for the brand. So I think that's exciting. I was going to ask everybody what's their favorite, but I think maybe that might...
you just took two of mine. So.
Yeah.
Same here.
But I would like to kind of wrap things up with, what do you think is the single most important takeaway that somebody should know about domainnames.com? I really think that you have a team that is passionate. I hope that came across in the podcast. To me, it was really clear that our buyers and sellers are really passionate about this platform. Right? They're excited about it. We want to sell names. People from the seller who obviously wants to sell a name because that's what they're coming to us for, to the broker, Tom, and our team that we have, and the people in the back end, and all the meetings that Tom mentioned that we go to. It's because the company as a whole really wants to sell the names. And that, I think that passion for me is the big takeaway that I have. Like, it's not just a website, it's something that people are really excited about.
Yeah, from a seller's perspective, again, we'll turn back to the brand name GoDaddy, and we don't see all the interworkings behind the scenes of how growth is happening or what else is going down. But, we have a great relationship with GoDaddy and a very high level of trust. It's, take these babies and make the most you can with them. And we trust 100% that you guys will do that. So our takeaway is, the trust factor in the brand is huge. The relationships I have with the folks there at GoDaddy is big. And I know that you guys are always looking out for us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I can jump in there. If I had to give one way, I'd also second the passion. We've also got our best of the best behind this platform, and we're putting a lot of effort behind it. It is, in terms of the aftermarket, it is one of our biggest initiatives that we're working on this year, and it will continue to be in the future as well. We really believe that, and we've proved it out, that if we put focus on ultra premium domains, that we can help move them. We can help move the inventory for sellers, and we can help make them discoverable for buyers. And that's what my passion has been about, helping out with this so far. I think it's been really cool to see it come to life, and excited to see where it goes.
5 years ago, members of the broker team would jump up and down whenever we would see a 6-figure sale. It was very exciting. I'm glad that Joe brought up 8 figures, because that's what I'm seeing at the high end of the market being normalized with the pricing. We've got C-level executives buying $50 to $100 million homes and yachts, operating a $250 billion global company. The acquisition these days of a $25 million asset, it's being thought of more as a percentage of market cap. So compared to their Plan B domain, as their target acquisition is going to give even just a small incremental lift, then 25 million, it's not a stretch for the right buyer. And buyers are seeing the value in this range, and deals are happening more regularly, which is very exciting to see. So it's the right place at the right time for domainnames.com.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it. It's an exciting time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will leave all the things we mentioned with links in the description so that you could follow up on it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.